Welcome back to the Christian Capitalist, everybody. I'm Rich Sanders. Thank you so much for joining us today here for the special 50th episode of our podcast. We're in my alma mater, St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C., and I'm joined by Abby Michels, Director of Mission and Ministry here at St. John's. For those of you who follow us along, you're already on social media with us, but for those of you who are watching this for the first time, we'd love it if you'd follow us on all the various social media outlets. Catch this podcast on YouTube, Audible, Spotify, or iTunes. And of course, you can learn more about our movement and learn more about the message of hard work and generous giving to the poor and needy in the name of Jesus at our website, christiancapitalist.life. With that, now, introduction aside, good morning, Abby. How are you doing?
Good morning. Great to be here. Thank you.
Me too. So we've got these poinsettias here because it's December 12th, and today's a special day at St. John's. I think it's the last day of class.
It is.
And so how are you all celebrating last day of class? I see a shirt that I bet you don't normally wear to school.
I figured this would be great for the Christmas edition of the Christian Capitalist. Last day before exams, and so the students have a dress down. They get to wear a festive Christmas sweater.
Oh, that's great.
So I thought I'd join in. I have my Santa earrings on, so we're ready to go. Thank you for letting me wear this.
You're
today.
welcome. I love it. You look great. And I'm so glad that we're able to celebrate the start of Christmas here this morning. And thank you so much for joining us. I want to start off by asking you, we're here at St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C., my alma mater, where I graduated in 1989. I was the cadet colonel. It's a much different environment then. First of all, no girls, and I'm so glad to see that half of our audience today is young women. It's just exciting, new dynamic, new to me as an alum. And the military program was 100% participation. So every morning at homeroom, I was telling Abby yesterday, every morning at homeroom, 8:10 to 8:20, we had announcements in attendance. 8:20 to 8:30 was inspection. Toes on the line, out on the hallway, all 1,200 of us for brass and haircuts and knowledge. And it was a lot of fun, but a much different environment.
Yeah.
This is a lot more fun.
Yes,
I got to be honest with you. So what brought you to St. John's?
Wow. Do you want me to start way back?
Start at the way back.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Well, from when I was very young, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so when I went to undergrad, I knew I wanted to go to a school that had a great program. And I looked at Lewis University, which was Lasallian, and I had no idea what that meant at the time. But I was like, okay, sounds great. They have an elementary and special education degree combined for the undergrad, and so I'd get out in 4 years with 2 degrees. And so that's where I first met the Christian Brothers, and they would invite us into their homes for dinner every once in a while, and I grew very fond of them. Then I learned about this program called Lasallian Volunteers that was targeted towards young teachers. And I grew up in the Midwest my whole life. I was looking for an adventure after graduation. And they said if you did this program, you had the opportunity to get your master's paid for after doing 2 years of service. And so they would send you somewhere else in the country where you would teach at a low-income school in the Lasallian tradition. And you would live in community with the Christian Brothers and other Lasallian volunteers.
Okay.
And so by the grace of God, I was sent to Concord, California. I was so excited. I was like, I get to live on the coast. I'm going to be tan year round.
Right. Learn to surf.
Yeah, I learned to surf. I found out that that's South California, not NorCal where I was. And so my first year I lived with 7 Christian brothers and 1 male volunteer. I was the only female in the community. Then my second year was 4 brothers and another female volunteer.
Wow.
And so I worked at a San Miguel school called De La Salle Academy, all boys 5th through 8th grade. And I taught math, English, science. There was a course called guidance. I'd also take them to gym. And even though I went to Lewis, which was a Lasallian university, the mission did not become real to me until I taught those boys at that school.
That's really cool.
And then I was able to put my degree into practice. And then that's where I truly fell in love with the Christian Brothers. Mm-hmm. I would say that they brought me to salvation. They brought me back into the Catholic Church. I owe my whole life to them, my vocation to them. And so,
that's so cool.
Yeah, to open up their home to young women. Like I was living with men, or one gentleman was as young as 35 and the oldest was almost 80.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So let me pause and ask you a question about that. So I'm originally from Alabama. My beautiful wife, Rebecca, and I have been married almost 28 years now. And she's from Jackson, Mississippi. In the South, people call each other at church brother and sister. And so to hear this is a Christian Brothers school, many people in the South would say, well, if it's Christian, it's all run by brothers, right? And in particular, in my hometown, I think about St. John's in this a lot when I would go visit my parents there before they moved to San Antonio, Texas. There's an automotive repair shop with 3 bays, cars up on the jacks, guys working on tires, changing the oil and everything. You know what the name of it is?
Called
Christian Brothers Auto Repair.
Yeah.
Right? So what does it mean to be at a Christian Brothers school, and what is this organization that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the Christian Brothers are non-ordained religious men who live in community with one another, and their founder is John Baptist de La Salle, who realized that the young poor boys of Reims needed an education. And so
Reims, France.
Reims, France, yep, thank you. And so he knew that he needed educators to fill these schools, and he was literally pulling almost homeless men off of the streets to provide them a place to live, but also an education, a training and education so that they could educate these young boys. And so he brought them into his family home. His family didn't really like that because these men didn't have as great of manners as they did. They came from wealth. And so eventually he purchased a home, brought the men into that home. And after a while, they established that they were a community, and what did they want to call themselves? And they decided on the term brother so that they could be brothers not only to each other, but to the students that they taught.
And all children of God.
And all children of God. And so over 350 years later, women have been involved in this mission. We kind of moved away from Christian Brother schools to Lasallian schools, where a lot of our schools are still single sex with just males, but we do have one female all-girls school, which is great. And then a lot of them are co-ed. And then the brothers had the foresight that the call to their vocations has been going down, just like any religious life. And I think they've respected women from very early on. And De La Salle praises the women who have helped him get his start with Christian Brothers schools back in the day. And so that being said, we have a lot of female educators in the Lasallian mission. I think over half are female educators, and they have opened up the leadership roles to women where they're presidents, directors of mission and ministry, I guess, principals. And so the lay people are partners in this education with the brothers. And while we do have some brothers who are still in leadership positions, they are aging out, and so they have formed their lay people in the mission so that they can take over.
You know, it's so funny you say that. It is part of the dynamic of orders in the Catholic Church and really around the world, that people are not only joining those vocations less, but going to church less. That's one of the reasons in the book, The Christian Capitalist, we lead off with kind of the notion that it's important to understand that you can worship God while you're at work without having ever gone to church, because we glorify God with our work. And one very kind of real example of how things are declining in terms of participation in vocation orders is that when I was here, I was a freshman in 1985 and graduated in 1989. This room is where the brothers lived. It was the brothers' residence. And so if you got cold over here, it was either a good thing or a bad thing. There was no like communal living like you described in your
What did you get called
internship.
over here for?
Good stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
good.
goodness. But yeah, you think about that. And upstairs where the boardroom is now is the brothers' kitchen. And they would, come on over and have lunch with us and all of that. But we had a total at the time, just in this space, right where we are now in the Vaggie dining room. This is where 8 brothers lived full time. Yeah.
And while we don't have any brothers at St. John's, I do want to say that we do have a vocation ministry team where we are still looking for young men who are interested in serving in education and becoming brothers. So we are not done yet. The brothers are still growing. Yes. I
love that. So the motto of our movement is the more we make, the more we give. I did not realize until just this morning that was part of John the Baptist de La Salle's story, that he used his wealth to buy a piece of property to then teach others in this new tradition.
Yes.
I just love that.
Yeah,
I love that. How, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I told you no pop quizzes,
Go for it.
but I really am curious. How did he become a saint? The school's called St. John's, right? So it's not just John the Baptist de LaSalle.
Correct. He became canonized in 1900, I believe, by Pope Leo the 13th.
No fact checking.
I might be getting that wrong, but I know
I'm
in
gonna take your word for it.
1950 is when he was determined the patron saint of educators.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were miracles attributed to him. I don't know what those are.
It's okay.
But, yeah.
We're going to assume someone does.
Yes.
Right? Because when I tell people I go to St. John's, I leave out the college part, right? Because that's where, for those who are watching and aren't familiar with our school, we're celebrating our 175th anniversary next year.
That's right.
This place is old,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in the old days, it was high school and college, but then the college part ended up dropping off. What's St. John's like today? Sitting here in 2025,
Wow.
Almost to 2026.
Yeah, certainly growing. I think when I started, we were about at 1,200 students. I think the goal is to get to 1,400. We're a little over 1,300 this day. We have a robust athletic program, performing arts program. We have a scholars program for students who want to achieve, I think, academically higher standards by going into AP classes and taking on a bigger course load. We have a vanilla program for students with learning differences.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest goal was a robust mission and ministry program where we invite all students to join in on the faith formation programs that we offer here to bring them into the church, as well as better their relationship with God through retreats, service, and faith formation programs. And I know I'm missing one. Liturgies, retreats, and service.
Yeah, that's all good. So let's talk about the service part.
Yeah.
You and I were visiting yesterday afternoon in St. John's. Do you still refer to yourself as cadets, even though you're not in the leadership program, or not everybody's in the leadership program? Okay, great. So how do St. John's cadets serve?
Oh, in multiple ways. So I'll start individually at first. Students are asked to serve 90 hours over the course of their years at St.
Wow.
John's. 15 their first year, and then 25 each year thereafter. The first year as freshmen, they serve their home. So how can they build a relationship with either their mom or their dad through working on a car together, or helping grandma prepare Thanksgiving meal, because service starts in the home and expands. We believe De La Salle started service at the home as well. Sophomore year, they do service to a worshiping community. So whether it's their parish, their synagogue, if they wanted to serve a faith-based organization, just so that they can feel welcome in a worshiping space and maybe continue to see themselves as a part of that community.
Mm-hmm.
Junior year, they serve the poor and marginalized. So whether that's a senior living home, a homeless shelter, you name it. And then senior year is kind of their choice. How do they want to go back to where they went sophomore year or junior year? Hopefully they've established a relationship and again continue to serve there.
That's great.
And then within the 90 hours, they also have what are called flex hours. We wanted the students to build relationships with each other. And so we say if they serve with or for St. John's, that counts as their flex hours to give back to the school, but also to serve with their peers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking yesterday. There's a sign. I can't remember if it's this.
all over the school.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. There's we enter to learn and leave
to serve.
Leave to serve.
Mm-hmm.
What a great way to couch it. Now, there's another sign, kind of a placard sign, the profile of a Lasallian graduate. And that phrase, poor and marginalized, is a part of what Lasallian schools, all of them, are looking to teach students about. How does that work? Because it sounds like there's a lot of community service opportunities. Is it also in the classroom?
It also is in the classroom. People may look at St. John's and say, well, you're not really serving the poor and the marginalized. And I would push back on that. I mean, certainly we do have more affluent students at St. John's. However, we offer 61% financial aid to all who come to St. John's.
And that comes to the tune of a lot of money. I was talking to somebody who said that's $7.5 million.
That's right. I think the goal is 10 million coming
great.
up. So that's wonderful. So no doors are shut to those who want to come to St. John's. We also partner with the San Miguel School down the road, San Miguel, DC, and we support them in various ways with resources, and we welcome their students to attend St. John's as well. So we raise money here for our twinning school, which is a school in Africa. That's Lasallian, called the Child Discovery Center. We have a drive in March where the kids help raise money for that. Kids are also very generous in donating canned goods for Thanksgiving. We have a cadet care drive that our Cadet Corps kids are running.
And today's the last day of that.
Today's last day, where they're donating toys, clothes, amongst other things.
And a whole bunch of charities benefit from that.
Exactly.
And I got to tell you, it's probably not obvious, but I enjoy a good chocolate chip cookie. And so I've seen these posters all over the place with a stack of chocolate chip cookies. When I was here, we didn't have a hockey team at all, much less a hockey team that wanted to cure cancer by selling cookies. That's awesome, right? So we got to talk about how I can take advantage of that before I leave.
All right, I'm pointing in the right direction.
But having said all of that, I want to just ask you one thing. What does it mean to you, the phrase poor and marginalized? In the book, we talk about hard work and generous giving to the poor and needy in the name of Jesus Christ. And the reason I use that phrase all throughout, poor and needy, is that it's not just what Paul wrote in the epistles. It's not just what Jesus said when he was teaching others, but it's all throughout the Psalms. I mean, 1,000 years before Jesus, people were talking about, Lord, please help me because I am poor and needy. So I stuck with that phrase because it's biblical. What does poor and marginalized mean to you? Who are we talking about in the community around St. John's?
Certainly. And so in my day-to-day, while we encourage the students to do service on their own, to take that ownership, in mission and ministry, I say that in our eyes, we look at spiritual poverty with the students. And so a lot of kids come to us with poor images of God, or no relationship to God at all, and we hope to be the face of Christ for them. Myself and my team of 3, 2 campus ministers and our chaplain, Father John. And so we love to create the mission ministry to be a welcoming space where any kids can come in. And I work with my team of peer ministers to do outreach to their peers on retreats and in the halls in the day-to-day, so that they know that St. John's is a faith space, and that they have someone that they can turn to when they're sad or have questions about their faith, if they want to be vulnerable. So it's my personal mission, I think our team's mission, to help kids establish a relationship with Jesus. And how do we do that? Through pastoral accompaniment.
I love that, pastoral accompaniment. Our first guest on the podcast. Now we're here at episode 50 after a year and 1 month. So it's been a pretty busy year.
Yeah.
And thank you. Our first guest of the podcast is a Roman Catholic deacon in San Antonio. He served, his name is Dan Kearns. He's been a deacon now for almost 40 years. He and my father served in the Air Force. So that's how my brother and I got to come to St. John's. My dad was stationed at the Pentagon in the late 80s. Before that, we were stationed in Italy, and that's where we met Dan. Devout Roman Catholic. He would drive from where we were in Brindisi 4 hours to Rome to worship at St. Sylvester's, because he just loved St. Sylvester's. It's basically a mile from the Vatican, and it was the heart of the Filipino community in Rome. So why is this guy from Massachusetts in the Air Force stationed in southern Italy driving to St. Sylvester's, the home of the Filipino community in Rome? Because before he went to Italy, he was stationed at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, where on a regular basis he got to visit with and learn from Mother Teresa. So in our first episode, he said to me, and it makes my hair stand on end just to talk about it, right? He said, Rich, Mother Teresa would always tell us. I'm like, talk about coming to the edge of your seat, right?
Yeah.
Mother Teresa would always tell us, every single person is called by God to be someone special for someone else in need. Isn't that something? So I love the peer ministry and the work that you're doing, because whether it's just one person in your entire time at St. John's or a group of people, you're being able to do what Mother Teresa talked to us about, which is exactly what Jesus talked about. She didn't invent that. She got that from him.
Right.
You're called to serve someone else in need. Now, Dan told us that he and Mother Teresa would also talk about, even in the 70s, before people became so isolated because of electronics and still post-COVID, so many people kind of live on their own, that there's this notion that people are lonely. And this spiritual deprivation that you're talking about is causing people to not only isolate from church, but isolate from society. Mm-hmm. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. It sounds like St. John's, and in particular, peer ministers do a great job of making sure nobody's lonely.
Absolutely.
But what do you see out there in the world in regards to loneliness and this kind of notion of trying to accompany people spiritually outside of the school?
So we've, I think, read stats on Gen Z being the loneliest generation because they're the most connected virtually, but that doesn't mean they're connected personally. Mm-hmm. And then looking at St. John's, we have students coming from over 100 feeder schools where they may not know anyone coming in at all. Yeah. And so, and St. John's is one of the biggest Catholic high schools, I think, in the area. They're not usually this big. And so finding your group of people or your place can be particularly hard here. And so we go on a peer ministry retreat in the summer, which is their favorite. And we teach
Where did y'all go this year?
The Claggett Center, right outside Frederick,
cool.
Maryland. And we talk about what it means to be noticed, named, and known. And so how do we not only notice someone in our midst, how do we call them by name and say their name correctly? Because so often we say, oh, maybe your name's too hard to pronounce. I'm just going to call you a nickname instead. But then how do we push a little further and get to know them? And I think in a part of being lonely, some people don't feel like they're heard all the time or listened to. And so we've learned about listening skills, how to lead a small group, and how to be a good listener so that someone feels like they have their full attention. And again, I think Jesus was a great listener. And how can they just simply be present and that be enough for someone who may not feel like they have anyone in their life?
I love that. Noticed, named, and known. That name part is really something that my wife Rebecca and I have been reflecting on this week. So we got here yesterday from Orlando, Florida, where we were at Disney World, which was fun. And we got a chance to go to Epcot and the Magic Kingdom, and it was great. But the reason we were there is to volunteer at a big charity event. So a guy named Gary Sinise, who's an actor that played Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, a movie, is a military veteran, right? He's a great guy. Gary Sinise, after that role, really became passionate about veterans and military families. My father was career Air Force, as I mentioned. I was in the Navy. And so military families are very important to us. This event is hosted by Gary Sinise's foundation. So he's a devout Roman Catholic who started a foundation and pays for everyone to come to Disney World before Christmas. But they have an unfortunate qualification. They've lost someone in military service, right? So as Rebecca and I are volunteering at this event, we practiced what you were talking about in peer ministry. And I just love it because to us, it was instinctual, hospitable. But when we're scanning badges to make sure people can go into dinner, 1,400 people in about 2 hours. It's a lot of people. Yeah. But just to say, welcome, Joe, welcome, Juan. Welcome, Juanita, was spectacular. And so many people would look up and light up when you name them. Just that, even that moment of engagement with a line of 100 people behind them helps a lot.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. So what then does that look like for students as they progress? Well, we got seniors here in the room today, and I want to hear from some of you all if you're interested in talking. What does that look like for seniors as peer ministers?
Should we turn it over to them?
Let's do.
Is this the microphone here?
This is our microphone. Okay. Joe's got the microphone over there. So we'd love to hear from y'all about what's it like to be a peer minister, and how do you put into action being noticed, named, and known. Listen, if nobody has any comments or questions, then it's totally cool. But if you do, now's the chance.
Just making sure everyone feels welcome in our community, because I feel like the biggest part about St. John's is all the students that we have, the relationships they're going to build with each other for the next 4 years. Really just doing the little things like maybe holding the door, or if somebody's low in money at the lunch line, buying a cookie.
Right on. Right on.
Help make other people's day a little bit better.
I appreciate that. Thank you. One of the most frequent comments I get about the book, which I gave a controversial title on purpose, right? So, because it's easy for us sitting here at St. John's to think Christian's good, but what's the part about being a capitalist? Capitalists exploit people. They're greedy pigs. And how can you be both? Because there are a good number of people, including I'm a pastor in the Episcopal Church, including my peers, who disagree that you can be both. And will tell me to my face, you're just wrong. This concept cannot work because Christianity and capitalism are at odds. And my response is, if you're not a capitalist, how are you going to have money to buy somebody a cookie? If you don't have money, how are you going to buy a home to educate homeless men in France 350 years ago? If you don't have money, how are you going to turn the brothers' residence into a dining room for students to use 30 years later, like Vaggie family did? The key is using wealth to be able to serve the poor and needy. One of my favorite verses, and you just reminded me, Abby and I were going to talk about this. One of my favorite verses as part of this movement is that anyone can be a Christian capitalist. All it takes is having a generous heart and a way to share, even if you don't have any money. Like we were talking about, part of peer ministry is sharing your time. It's not about giving anybody anything. I got to tell you, one of the most devout people I've ever met and generous was a homeless man under a bridge in Atlanta. 15 years ago, my buddy and I were down there handing out protein bars and bottles of water, and we come up to this guy who's literally, just imagine, that story of Abraham and Lazarus, where Lazarus is laying at the gate, yep. And he's got so many sores he can't even move. That's this guy. He's laying down like on his side under a bridge with the interstate roaring overhead. We said, hey man, we'd love to give you some water. We'd love to give you, whatever we had, boiled eggs, protein bars. And he reaches over to his side and there's like a soft case of some kind. He's like, man, thanks, but I'm good. And he pats it. And I was like, well, what you got in there? He opens it up. He had 50 sandwiches in plastic bags that other Christian ministries had already given. And the part that just got me, he said, you save that and give it to someone who really needs it. Imagine that kind of faith. Living under a bridge and says, God takes, and then he went on, God takes care of me. I got this bridge to protect me from the rain and the sun. I got a bag full of sandwiches. You hang on to that to give it to someone in need. Isn't that funny? Kind of redefines what your idea of faith is, for sure, and redefines what it is to mean to be rich. So this is where we're going to do a little Bible study.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
And y'all, how much time do we have left? I can't see the clock. Well, this is perfect timing then, because this is so important. The theme of the book is right here on the very first page. Would you read it to us?
Sure.
And then I'd like your thoughts before the kids have to go.
Okay. As for those who in the present age are rich, command them not to be haughty, or to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, generous and ready to share, thus storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of the life that is really life.
Isn't that cool? And I didn't write that. Who wrote that?
St. Paul's first letter to Timothy.
So that's 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 16 and 17, and the theme of the book. Everything we have is from God for our enjoyment and his. And then we are to do good works and share. So what does that mean for you at St. John's as the director of ministry and mission and ministry? Sorry, I don't get the M's in the wrong order. What does that mean to you, that this notion of being ready to share and rich in good works? What do you think about that?
Can I share my quote? Is this a good time for that?
Okay. Perfect.
So I'll do verse for verse. One that really speaks to me in the work that we do here at St. John's as teachers goes back to Mark 10:13 through 16, where it says, people were bringing little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them, but the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to these. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. And he took the little children into his arms, placed his hands on them, and blessed them. And so you may ask, like, who's the protagonist in this scripture? And some people may think Jesus, some may think the children, others may talk about the disciples being the main character. But it's really that first word, people, or first few words, people were bringing the little children to Jesus. And I think they're the main character in this scripture passage because they are the ones bringing salvation to the children, bringing them to salvation, which is Jesus. And so I think that all the faculty and staff at St. John's take on that responsibility of how can we do that outside of mission and ministry in teaching them biology or physics, and how do we do it? Well, not all of our faculty and staff are Christian, but in a Christian and loving manner. And I think we do that well.
I love that. All right, so we were talking a little bit about the profile of a Lasallian school graduate. You got a dozen of your peer ministry students here. For those that may not go teach at a Christian Brothers school in the future, but go become doctors and lawyers and accountants and engineers and all the things that St. John's graduates do, how would you like them to use their experience as a peer minister in the future out in the world?
Yeah. I tell them that, or I will tell them, we'll talk about this at the end of the next, or at the end of the school year.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, it's all right. It's like, peer ministry isn't just a role that you have your senior year in high school. I want you to continue to be a peer minister in your day-to-day lives. Like, you're always going to have peers, and you'll always have the opportunity to minister.
Yes.
And so how can they be a peer minister as a doctor, as a lawyer, in whatever path that they choose? And so continuing to provide opportunities to listen and to be present, and to serve without expecting anything in return. And I know that they'll do that because they have the heart for service here and serving their peers here, that it'll come naturally to them.
Right on. And the Gospels tell us no one takes a lamp and puts it under a bushel. And I think as a peer minister, you have the light of Christ. And when you shine it, you don't need to say anything. By your actions, you shine the light of Christ to people, and they will see it, and they will come to you.
That's right.
Just like they did to Jesus.
That's right.
So, Abby, I want to conclude because everybody has to go to the
Next period.
The
Yes.
next period. What, in terms of this notion of hard work and generous giving to the poor and needy, kind of the signature question here for our 50th episode of the podcast is, what does it mean to you to be a Christian capitalist? What do you think of this concept?
Wow, big question.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I think you said it really well, is looking at the graces given to you by God, whether financially or otherwise, and how do you share that? And I just hope, and I've talked about this with my spiritual director, where I'm like, I have it so good, and almost kind of feeling guilty about that, and not sitting in my sorrows, but just like, why was I blessed with so much? And her name's Lori, my spiritual director, and she said, God gave you an abundance to share the abundance. Like, you can't give in lack of whatever you have. And so acknowledge your abundance, be grateful for your abundance, and share it with the joy that you have to give.
I love that. Just like Paul told Timothy, be quick to share and generous in good works.
Yeah.
Abby, thank you so much for
so
your
much
time
for
today.
having
And
me.
thank you, students, for joining us today. Applause is certainly welcome. She was great. And great job. And thank you all for joining us on the Christian Capitalist Podcast, our special 50th episode from St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C. Make sure you like, tag, share, and repost this episode as you see it on our social media. And as always, you can find out more about our movement at christiancapitalist.life. And remember, you're welcome. Thank you. It's so great to see you. And remember, the Christian Capitalist, the more we make, the more we give.